Hey everyone, I'm Aaron. That's my identical twin brother, and you are in a Baseball Brewhaha. It's a special edition, folks. It is Korean style Baseball Brewhaha, and so we're going to be having enjoying a cup of coffee and a little daily baseball trivia fracas. But we're going international today. So Adam, you've got a question dialed up for us. What do we got?
Annyeonghaseyo to our listeners. We are going to
translated
translated hello in Korean. Which active South Korea-born player has the best 162 game average stats? That's what we're looking at. And this one is inspired by Man Choi and Hwan Bae are the first Korean-born teammates to homer in the same game in MLB history. Big moment. We have some personal ties to South Korea, which we'll get to a little bit later in story time. So this question sort of gets at these active players from South Korea and who's doing it. So which active Korean player has the best statistics? So we have Hwan Bae of the Pirates, Man Choi of the Pirates, Seong Kim of the Padres, or Rob Refsnyder of the Red Sox.
Rob Refsnyder repping the most Korean name in the bunch here. We're gonna talk about Rob here in a bit. So this list is interesting of players because they're like good in some regards and they have spurts, but they're not like, they're really not all-star caliber players really quite. But Hwan Bae get there for the Pirates, though Brian Reynolds is tearing the cover off the ball right now, so he might shove out Hwan Bae. I went Man Choi here just because I know he's hit well, played a good first base, so I went Man Choi.
I went Man Choi as well. He had some, especially some power. I don't think he hit for a lot of average, and he was a little bit of a spot player. And so he was more of like platoon. And so I'm thinking they're matching him up in favorable matchups. He's getting good at bats against players and good matchups for him. So I went Man Choi on this one as well.
Okay.
Well, let's take a peek. And, well, we got second place together.
Yeah.
Man Choi is second, a close second to Hwan Bae, who's off to a good start with the Pirates. So his projected stats over 162 games would be a 288 average, 17 home runs, 102 RBI, and OPS of 793. Man Choi, 238 batting average, 21 home runs, 75 RBI, and a 770 OPS. So they're pretty close, pretty comparable players, but we didn't get it this time.
Yeah. So how long has Hwan Bae been? I feel like is he a rookie right now, or is he?
He's a rookie. Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I was trying to remember that. So I'm not up on my trivia, my Pirates even basic level of trivia, like an active roster. So I apologize, Pirates fans. We're trying. Yeah.
So these four players who are on this list are the only four active Korean-born players.
Okay.
And you may have noticed Rob Refsnyder is not a very Korean-sounding name, and that is because it is not a Korean name. So he was born in Seoul, South Korea. At 5 months, he was adopted by a Californian family, the Refsnyders. That's where the name comes from. And he was raised to be competitive. His dad didn't let him win at anything. And so he didn't even beat his dad one-on-one at basketball until he was 17 years old.
His dad, by the way, was a 6'8" collegiate basketball player. So there's a little bit of a competitive streak, if you will.
I didn't know that. That's amazing. Well, it makes sense then. He went on to play college baseball, of course, at University of Arizona. Won the College World Series in 2012. Was the College World Series Most Outstanding Player that year, and is now with the Red Sox as a utility player.
Yeah, so he hit 476 in that 2012 College World Series, including a home run in his first game. So we mentioned his name is not like the other one. So he does have a Korean name. He was given a Korean name, and that name was Kim Jung-tae. The last name in Korea goes first. So we're not going to dive too much into Korean culture here. we're gonna lose one or two here, but his nickname at 5 months old, he was a big baby apparently, so his nickname was Moose, and in Korean, your Korean language lesson for the day, that was Elku. Elku. Okay, so it's very clear that in the Korean vernacular, we don't have a distinction between an elk and a moose. And for some of you, you may be thinking the same thing. Well, what is the difference between an elk and a moose? Well, when you live in the Pacific Northwest for a time, then you learn the difference between an elk and a moose will destroy you. So just Google them. But, there you go, elku.
Yeah, there's all kinds of directions we could go with trivia today. Elk trivia being the next. So these four players, they're the active Korean players. They're not the only Korean players who have ever played in Major League Baseball. Some all-stars. So players from Korea who have appeared in an all-star game. Chan-ho Park was the original. Hyunjin Ryu, who most recently pitched for the Dodgers last year. Byung-hyun Kim, who pitched a lot of years with the Diamondbacks, and then Shin-Soo Choo, who played several years with the Cleveland Indians, now Guardians. In total, 28 South Korean-born players have played in Major League Baseball, 16 pitchers, 12 position players, and all four active players are not pitchers.
Yes. So you can tell we're still struggling with our roster knowledge because Hyunjin Ryu pitched for the Blue Jays.
Oh, you're right. He started with the Dodgers, though, didn't he?
He did, yeah. And he was injured like all of last year, so I can't blame you for that. Yeah. So the guy here that was really fascinating with his career to me was Chan-ho Park. Chan-ho Park was the first Korean-born player to play in MLB, and he's actually the leader among Asian-born players for wins as a pitcher. So Chan-ho Park's a pitcher. He has 124. Chan-ho Park is maybe most well known for a couple of infamous events that he's been a part of. One of those being that he gave up 2 grand slams in the same inning to Fernando Tatis Sr., so not junior, senior. So that's a rough outing. And then all the other one that he's sort of tied to history is that he gave up in 2001 Barry Bonds' 71st home run that broke at that time. Mark McGwire held the record at 70 in a season. Chan-ho Park gave up number 71 to Bonds, who then went on to hit 2 more and finished the season with 73. So,
some great info there. Well, you may be wondering, where do these Korean players come from? Because they don't just like wake up and decide they're going to join the MLB. They've got a whole league. It's the KBO, the Korean Baseball Organization, started in 1982. And it's somewhat similar to the Japanese league, where some players will later in their career cross the pond and join MLB. And so, for those of you who might be looking for a little KBO update, they've just started their season. It's a 10-team league. When it started in 1982, it was just with 6 teams. and we're going to get into story time a little bit later, but we both lived in South Korea close to a couple of these teams, the Samsung Lions and the Lotte Giants.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those teams are struggling a little bit early. We got the standings here. So Lotte at 3-5, Samsung at 2-7, tied for last. In first place, a team that was not in existence when we lived in South Korea, the SSG Landers. They're at 7-1. And if you want your stat leaders, batting average leader is Sungju Moon at 438.
Mm-hmm.
Pitching, Woo Jin-an, 24 strikeouts in 13 innings with an ERA of 0.69.
Mm-hmm.
And the Korean League is also a somewhat popular place for major league players to go, maybe who are at the end of their career or maybe recovering from injury and want to reestablish themselves. So a couple recognizable players, maybe Dan Straley, former MLB pitcher and former All-Star and rising star Addison Russell plays for the Kium Heroes, batting .333 to start the year.
Yeah. So a couple of things. So major leaguers who perhaps you've heard of, especially if you're a Mariners fan, you definitely have, that played in the KBO and then and kind of turned their career around. Chris Flexen, starting pitcher for the Mariners, has had some success coming from started in the major leagues, really struggled, went to KBO, and then came back and has had some success since coming back. If Adam and I are really, we're not in the betting world here, but I just want you to know, in case you're looking for that, there are some places where you can go and find betting lines on the KBO. So so take your wagers and bet on the KBO. We have no insight, no intel. I don't know where you're going to get that intel. So so enjoy that. But a couple of players that caught my attention, who Adam had never heard of. Eric Fetty pitched for the Nationals the last couple years and is currently pitching the KBO. And as of the first few games, he had a .47 ERA, 1 earned run in 19 innings. And then Guillermo Heredia, who I believe most recently played for the Atlanta Braves, played for the Mariners for a time as well. His slash line to start the season is 382, 475, 618 with a couple of bombs in the old KBO. So that's enough KBO statistics, I think, for one day. Why don't we move on to a little story time?
Yeah, well, we can't get story time going without a little story time music. Let's bump it.
Yeah. Not just any music. So I want to share a story. So Adam and I, he mentioned before, we both lived in South Korea. I lived there for about a year, and Adam for about 4 years. And during which time we had the privilege of playing basically city league or town team baseball while we were there. So I'm repping my jersey that I wore for, it was a hospital that represented us, and our team name was the Sharks, which I can't show you, but it's on the back here. And so the way this got started for me was that the school that we worked at, my boss, her husband picked up over time that I liked baseball, and he kind of asked around and figured out that there was a league and knew some guys. And so on a random Saturday, he took me to the park where the state. It's not a stadium. It's a field where they were playing their games, and he had talked to one of his buddies and said, "Hey, can my American friend come and play on your team?" And they said, "Oh yeah, sure." So I show up at the field, And they say, okay, you can, what position you play. And, I don't speak any Korean and they don't speak any English. And so we're working this out through my boss who's translating. And so they stick me at third base and we're taking infield. We're not even playing in the game. They're just hitting me grounders and, and I'm just fielding grounders and just playing, no big deal. And I see a little gathering behind home plate between the other team's manager and the umpire. And it turns out that they didn't want me to play in the game because I was too good. So even before the game started, they, they had me removed from the field of play. And fortunately, there were some other guys from another team. So kind of like City League sports, you have like your different tiers of talent. And there was another team who was this team, saw me there and they said, well, hey, you can come play for us. And so so I ended up playing for them. I played 4 games. Due to weather and hamstring injuries, I was hampered and had an inglorious end to my career. Had a couple of hits, but I was aging. It had been 6 years since I had actually played baseball in high school, and so I ingloriously finished it by I tweaked my hamstring fielding a comebacker while I was pitching.
Oh no. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
Well, your story of getting started is similar to mine. I played about 3.5 seasons in my city league. I was there longer. You were there just over a year, so I was there for 4 years. Um, and my team was Ungji, and don't have my uniform with me, unfortunately. It's in storage somewhere, but I was connected through a friend of a friend. Um, Almost nobody on my team spoke English, and I did not speak Korean, and so we just spoke the language of baseball.
Wait, yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah. And the city where I was in, Pohang, was a bigger city than where you were.
Yeah.
And so it was a bit more competitive, more players to choose from. I was on a team that was in not the highest level, but one of the higher levels. And so I was able to just jump in and play. And my first game, I was so nervous because I was like, I got to prove to these guys that I can play. And so my first at bat, I was just like, my goal was not to strike out. And I was successful there. I grounded out to second base. And then I just relaxed and just let it flow. And the rest of the game, I went 3 for 3 with 3 triples.
It's a great no cycles, no inside the park home runs, huh?
No, nothing like that. And I finished that season. We made it to the championship game and lost. I batted 600 that year, 12 for 20 on the year. And I also won the Gold Glove Award for best pitcher. And I won, apparently, I was told this, I won the pitching triple crown.
Oh, wow.
For lowest ERA, most strikeouts, and whatever the other category is.
Wait, isn't it wins?
Wins, yes, most wins. Because so they had the best pitchers. So they had oftentimes the best pitchers were former pro players, but they could only pitch 1 inning a game. But I wasn't a former pro player, and so they just threw me the whole game, and I could pitch. So
Yeah.
our team won a lot, and I just got the win for about every game. So
yeah, there you go. That's how you
so
do it.
it's a lot of fun. Korea is a funky place to watch pro baseball too. I went to a few games. Gotta love some of these team names too. So you got the NC Dinos.
Yep.
And one of my favorite games that I went to go watch was a matchup between the Doosan Bears. Bears is a somewhat normal name, but they were playing the Hyundai Unicorns.
Well, and the thing that's interesting too about the names too is like, in America, you're used to, the Seattle Mariners and the New York Yankees. Well, these are all primarily names of companies. the Samsung Lions,
Yeah.
the Lotte Giants. For those,
Yeah.
Lotte is a huge company over in Korea.
And because they're sponsored by companies, they change ownership frequently. So only the Samsung Lions and the Lotte Giants have remained unchanged.
Okay.
Every other team either disbanded or has changed teams. So, like the SSG Landers, who are now in first place, used to be the Hyundai Unicorns.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
little,
and
yeah,
for a little bit of context, you're kind of talking about this. It is very similar to the Japanese, the Nippon League in Japan, but the talent level, generally speaking, is a bit lower than in Japanese. So it's why part of the reason why you don't have quite as many Korean players as you do Japanese is the talent level is not quite the same there just yet.
yeah, and the league is a bit smaller as
Yeah,
well.
for sure. For sure. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for joining us on a longer session. We love talking about Korean baseball. It's a special place in our heart. Thanks to StatHead, the KBO League, and the Pirates, of course, for the representation of Korean baseball. Thanks for joining us. If you got a burning question, put it in the comments below. Find us on Twitter. And, tomorrow, look forward to seeing you then.